The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. Today I have Colin Hewitt with me from Float. Hello Colin, how are you?
I'm really well, thanks.
Good. Right, let's get started. I came across you on LinkedIn, as I do with most of my podcast guests, and we were commenting about, something dull about raising finance for business. And I was intrigued about your entrepreneurial story. Can you share with the world where it all began?
Yeah, gosh, it all began with somebody saying to me once, if you ever want to really know what living life is all about, you should start your own business. And I think I was at university at the time and I'd never considered it. And it just sort of planted a seed for me where I thought, maybe there's something in that. And I think I did computer science in Heriot-Watt in Edinburgh, and my college, fellow students were going to trade shows, and I'm thinking, this does not appeal to me. I do not want to be a software engineer in a big corporate job. And so I just started thinking about it and thought, I'm going to run a business. And I didn't have a clue what it was going to be, but I knew I was going to start something.
Okay.
And it, landed on web design and brand, print, that kind of stuff. It was kind of my wheelhouse. So that's where we got started.
Okay, cool. Was there any entrepreneurship in your family at all?
Not immediately, but when I found out later that my great grandfather ran a business.
Okay. What was his business?
His business was he was in Belfast, and it was a big home interior kind of shop on one of the big streets in Belfast. And I don't know exactly what it did, but because I think shops were different back then.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those shops like in the Two Ronnies where they come in and ask for things over the counter.
Right.
Like 4 candles.
4 candles.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Love it. All right. So software engineer into design, website, brand, that kind of thing. So did you have the creative flair, or did you work with somebody who did the creative bit and you did the software bit?
Yeah, so I found somebody who was, I met a friend who was an artist at the art college, and she was studying painting and drawing. So it wasn't really in the digital space, but I said, look, I think I can help you get started with these digital tools and apply your skills to building websites and that. And she was really up for that. So we basically bought tutorials and magazines, and she started applying that and learning, and it came very naturally to her. So that was really how we got started, was making those digital skills available, and then being able to do stuff for print and web.
Okay. And when did the idea for Float come about?
Well, that was 10 years later. So Float's my second business. My first business was a digital agency. And as part of that, I was reading this book called The E-Myth, which I've talked about before, and just talking about that sense of if your business doesn't work without you, then you've just essentially got a job.
Pretty much.
So I started thinking, like, how can I get myself out of the business so that I'm able to do more what I want to do? And one of the big areas, the bottlenecks, was the finances. And so I just started thinking about, like, what are all the systems in place that need the finances I can completely extract myself without depending on another person. Just a lot of times people just bring in a finance person, and I was like, I want to get to the point where it's so automated that it's almost, modular, and it can just be interchanged. And that was that I thought I'll do that with finances, then I'll move on to something else. But actually, I was so into that, ended up building a spreadsheet that worked really well. and did our cash flow, which was our biggest concern at the time because we were project based. We had all this lumpy cash flow. And but yeah, the thing was that with the spreadsheet was I still needed to run it. So I was still basically having to be there. And I thought if we could make this into an app that kind of guided people through it, then essentially it could just run itself. And that was where the idea came from.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit, because you've hit on something that so many business owners fail to realize until it's a little bit too late. In that you're right, your business is just a really difficult, quite underpaid job unless it doesn't rely on you anymore. And in that design and the web space, it's so centered on the founders that it's really hard to extricate yourself. What advice do you have for business owners of any type who are going, well, how do I pull myself out of this? How do I stop it being about me? What have you done in this business that you're currently in to do that?
Yeah, well, I think if you start with that intention, it's a great intention to say, I want to get to the place where I'm not needed in this business. I could go on holiday for 2 months and the business would run without me. I think if you start with that intention, it's really, really good. And maybe that seems lazy, or, it seems almost inconceivable for somebody to think that. But actually, if you think about it, if your business is running really well, then it frees you up to think about other areas that you could be developing or efficiencies you could bring. So it's a really great place to be. It's not saying you have to slack off and sit on a beach for that time. And, I've seen so many friends and colleagues who've started businesses who, they're just burnt out and they're running around, they're trying to do things like the payroll or schedule meetings or, and it kind of works up until a point and then it starts breaking. And so it's not a really good place where you want to be. And it's easy to sort of push it down the road and think one day I'll have really great people and I'll be able to afford all this. But actually it's lots of people get far too far down the road.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the things that gets me really excited is like that sense of like, when are you hiring an EA? When are you hiring, a COO to come in and do stuff? What are the bits you don't like doing? And just, you can start to get rid of those things and find people who are better than you at doing them and who like doing them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but also if you just bring in people and that you don't like, you can't live without, then you're tied to them. So the more you can systemize it, the more you can find systems as well. I think those two things work really well together. So yeah, for me, it's just been a real journey in that. And the most recent one for me was hiring an executive assistant that, I was really reluctant to do that because I thought I'm pretty good at managing this. I like having the control. I'm good at my email, but actually, somebody was saying, if you do not do this, you will never level up to the point where, you learn how to do it, because it's actually a skill in learning to delegate. And so if you have to start sometime. And a lot of people hold on to it and leave it too late. And actually, yeah, that's been a great leveler up for me in hiring that person.
That's really good advice. I'm really lucky, Colin, in that I'm rubbish at spreadsheets. I hate doing numbers. So from my business from day one, it's like somebody else needs to do that. I understand them once they're produced, but that whole process, producing the numbers, is a big fat no-no for me. Probably a bit like you. Yeah, I can do the diary management and the email stuff. I have just found somebody, she starts on Monday, who's going to be doing all of that for me, which is just hallelujah. And then you've got, I think the difference is not so much the doing, it's the headspace, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. It's fine. It all works until it doesn't, and I think it's fine until you're in a meeting and somebody's cancelled or you need to reschedule something, and just having somebody else who can do that and who knows your diary better than you do. It sometimes seems almost feel a little bit weird saying, somebody says, can we meet for lunch? And saying, yeah, I'll pass this on to Sarah to run that. And actually but she may be booking 3 or 4 different meetings. And so if I just put something in the diary, it actually breaks the system. So it's just better to let one person handle that. And then you learn how to communicate, and they learn what you want and what you don't want. And it's a really, it's just so good.
Do you think a part of the reluctance and genuine question here is that entrepreneurs, feel like it's a luxury to have that sort of person, or there's almost, feeling bad that they're not doing all of this? Do you think there's an element of that?
Yeah. I mean, I know companies that have raised millions of pounds, and they're big, they're going to be big success stories. And I know their CEO, and they just feel like it's a luxury, and they shouldn't, they should hold on until they're really successful. And it's that sort of, we'll do it one day. And actually it's like, well, what's that costing you in headspace? Like, your job right now is to come up with ideas, be in like strategic meetings, and do not be doing anything that anybody else can do for, a fraction of what, if you think about what your hourly time is worth and what it should be worth, then, it does seem weird to have somebody organize, like book a restaurant. You could do that. You could book a flight, but actually, I've thought of, I can book a flight and go online, and an hour later, I'm still like looking through different combinations, and it's just, let somebody else do it and use that time. Even if you're just resting and you're ready to go, the next morning in a better state, like, that's worth it. So yeah, really 100% behind that one. And I think, the next level is, somebody said, even your assistant should have an assistant, like when they get to a certain point, like, they should start hiring people. You should be like, you're now at a level where we're working really well together. So I don't want you to be doing stuff that, somebody else could do. I want you to be doing this harder stuff. So you actually start, and you start to empower your team to have assistants. Like, it's not just for me. I don't want them doing stuff that somebody else could do, and I could have their time used more efficiently. So, it is a real cultural thing that you put in place. And a lot of people, they just don't do it. And you can go to the next level, that you can say, right, that's going to apply for like your fitness, your health. Are you hiring a personal trainer? Like, in some people, I couldn't put that on the business, but actually, I now pay for, I've got a trainer. It's amazing. And it's really transformed my, my physical relationship with my body and all that. And, I pay for it myself now, but I put it on the company for the first, like, as a kind of, for the first thing, just to try it. So I think you can, that's one of the things running your own company allows you to do, is to try stuff and experiment. And, you can get coaching. That's all of that is like coaching for your mental health, coaching for your body, support for your operations, all that. Like, get the help you need so you can be the best, version of yourself.
I agree. I have outsourced my house cleaning for years, and my ironing and all of that since I was about 26. I've had a cleaner, different person each time, but it's for that reason. It's so my weekends are my weekends. And you're right. It's that whole, you've got to have the balance between the mental, physical, and work health as a CEO and leader of a business, because it's so flipping stressful. It's just not true. That you need a massive support team. It's like climbing Everest. They have a support team. You need a support team when you're building a business. So tell me about Float. So you got this magic spreadsheet, and then what happened?
Yeah, just a bit of backstory on that. The idea for Float came from my personal finances. I was in debt, and I was like, every month I was going to the bottom of my overdraft, and it was really, really painful. Just, somebody say, hey, should we go on holiday? And I was like, I literally have no money. And, I didn't want to just go into debt further and put stuff on credit cards, obviously. So I was like, I've got to sort this out. And I tried, keeping a note in a every time I spent something, and it just didn't work. And eventually I went down and I was like, right, what are my fixed costs? Like, what are the things that are non-negotiable, like my rent and all that? And eventually I was able to see if I spend £100 more than I earn every month, it just goes down. The graph just goes down. And whenever I spend £100 less than I earn every month, the graph goes up,
Okay.
forever. And it was that kind of penny drop moment where when I saw it in a graph, it was like, all it is £100 either way. And you get on the wrong side of that. And if you consistently do that, your life looks very different. And so I realized, like, hold on, I can do this for the business. This applies for business as well. So let's run it for the business. And that was where the idea came from, is just I want to be able to know the future. I want to be able to ask the question, what if we hire another person? What if we did hire an EA, or what if we won this job? What would that allow us to do? And have the sort of knowledge of that, because I know I'm not a numbers person either. Actually, I have no accounting background and no interest in it. But really, what I want to know is cash. How much cash? What does the cash mean? And so many times there's a discrepancy between profit and cash, and I'm like, I just want to know if there's cash. Then that should take care of everything else. It's very rare to have lots of cash and no profit, on a consistent basis. Sometimes it can work the other way, where you've got profit and no cash. But really, if you've got lots of cash and you get cash coming in, generally that's a sign of a profitable business.
Absolutely.
So for me, I was like, that's the only thing that I care about. And how can we show this? I bet you other business owners like me are in the same position, where they don't want to look at P&L. They don't want to look at historical, financial reports. They just want to look and see, what if we do this? What happens then? And have something visual that they can understand if you're not a numbers person. So that was the vision. That was what we wanted to bring. And at the time, accounting was changing. So it was moving from desktop-based software that was very dominated by the big player in the UK was Sage, and it was moving to companies like FreeAgent, here, another Edinburgh company, and Xero and QuickBooks in the US, and eventually Sage have got there too. But now everything's online, so you have these APIs, and we could pull out all that information. So you could have somebody can do your books in your accounting software, but then we can pull out all your invoices, all your bills, allow you to create budgets, and know that your VAT payment is coming up next month as well. So it was kind of pulling all those things together. You don't get it just from your accounting software, because you need the future oriented stuff. And then what happens if somebody phones you up and tells you, I can't pay this invoice, it's going to be 21 days late? You can, in Float, the idea was you can go in and just change that expected payment date and see the impact on a graph, not on a table, but in an actual graph, and show, oh, if that person doesn't pay me on time, I can't make the payroll. Those are the sort of things that business owners face, and we wanted to be able to model.
That's really cool. And you're right, the timing was beautiful. Who are your clients then? Who uses Float?
Yeah, I mean, really interestingly, because we were coming from an agency background, I thought, well, we'll just, all the agencies will like this. And we started with FreeAgent as our first integration.
Right.
It was like, if we go through a channel like that, then we're almost like an add-on. So you're already using the software, use our software on top of it to give you what you really want. And that's a really nice model of building software, because it almost allows people to bolt on different things that they want and get the end result without having to pay for a very big solution that they might not use all of. So we did FreeAgent, and then we realized that their target audience was, at the time, was more solo freelance businesses, and it wasn't a lot of those businesses, even though forecasting is good, it wasn't really essential, because a lot of times you can kind of get a fairly accurate idea of what's in your head, and you don't have a big payroll, and so your costs are fairly stable. You're just tracking income essentially. Whereas a business, when they have maybe 4 or 5 employees, that's a very different picture. And the payroll is significant every month. And that's the sort of thing where we started targeting. We found another platform called Xero, which at the time was very young and growing. And we thought these guys are sort of targeting slightly larger businesses and they're global. So we integrated with them. We went out to Australia and launched it in Australia, which is really cool. We won. They had an award ceremony where we won Best Emerging Add-on back in 2014, which is brilliant.
Cool.
And it really kind of launched us. And yeah, but the problem was that we started getting businesses signing up from all sorts of different backgrounds. So, hotels and energy companies and drinks companies and construction companies, e-commerce, everything. And our product team were constantly just speaking to different businesses coming in. We need this, we need to build this, we need to build this. And it was really hard to have any sort of coherent product roadmap because there was just so much to do. It felt like we couldn't please everyone. So what we realized actually only really in the last couple of years was we've got to get really focused on our target customer. And that's been something that has kind of become a bit of, a message that I love to talk about now, because it was a light bulb moment where if you're not really focused on a target customer, and I would have said, it's small business owners and accountants and finance people. And that is not a target. It's not small enough to be a good, target customer. So we are really we decided we're going after agencies. It's what we started on. And we worked out that there's stuff that we can build for agencies that we haven't got in the product as it stands. And it's not relevant for everybody, but it really is relevant for agencies. So we're working, all the feedback we take on now is agency related. That's our focus. And, we might be able to broaden out at some point in the future, but actually it's a huge market just in and of itself. So
massive.
We're targeting agencies and it's great going back to that and learning about what they need as well.
What a great lesson for people to learn. I get a variety of coaches approaching me because we've managed to scale beyond doing face-to-face coaching, and they come to me and they say, how have you grown it? And the answer is niche down, find your audience, target them, get really, really, really good at that. And then the other stuff can be added on later if necessary. But yeah, I think that's fantastic advice for any sector, any industry, definitely.
And it's scary. I don't know about you, but that sense of limiting yourself, it's kind of almost counterintuitive. It's like, well, why would we limit ourselves to one subsection? But it means you can be great for that subsection. And it also means that those people are more likely to talk to each other. So you can get that kind of dominance in that world that you're in, where it's like, if you're an agency, we think you should be using Float to manage your cash flow and your projects. And that's really it just helps everything. It helps your marketing, helps your product development, it helps your brand. It's so much you can do when you get it right, but it's scary at the beginning, and it is counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is. Now, before we came on air, we briefly touched on leadership. So I'm going to pick you up on that. What's your leadership style, Colin?
My leadership style? You have to ask my colleagues. I think, we read a book. There's a couple of books that have really influenced us. And, I've made a lot of mistakes in leadership. I think you sort of start off just thinking, why does everybody not just get it? And why is everybody not helping me achieve my vision?
Yeah. Why aren't they all just like me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I learned a great book on this is Patrick Lencioni, The Advantage. Have you come across that?
Yeah, love him. Yeah,
so,
sorry, finish the title, Colin. Sorry.
Yeah, The Advantage. And so he's got lots of books, Death by Meeting, and gosh, I can't remember them all. But
Five Dysfunctions of a Team is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was a big one. And I think, it's really hard to kind of pick stuff up from a textbook until you've been through the challenges of it. And so a couple of times I've just been in it where I'm like, this is not working. And I literally remember sitting once with my head on my desk going, I do not want to be here. I do not enjoy working with this team. and thinking, right, what is the answer? Like, what I have to find out. So every time you kind of hit a bump in the road, and this has been my experience, is like an opportunity to learn and figure something out. And so we came across a friend of mine recommended the book, and I'd read Dysfunctions of a Team, but The Advantage kind of pulls it all together really nicely, where it sets out these questions around, why do we exist? How do we behave? What do we do? How do we succeed? And what's most important right now? And really building that sense of communication. And I think this is probably in the Dysfunctions of Team, it's probably that sense of vulnerability-based leadership. And I remember, realizing that if our team is going to be healthy, if we're going to be a healthy team, then our leadership team has to be healthy above everything. Like, that's where it starts. So we went away with a coach to do like an offsite, stayed overnight, and like sat up and talked about our own personal journeys. And I knew I had to go first with that. And I was really terrified. It was really vulnerable. I was not comfortable doing it. I was nervous. I kind of had this story plan that, people really knew me, they'd reject me, or they would, it wasn't going to work. And so I had to just, man up a bit, and I was really nervous. I remember it really well. And then I remember but the conversation that night went brilliantly. And because I was vulnerable, other people would be able to be vulnerable, and we built something of trust in that. And, that's been the principle that we've tried to really lead with. And Jen, who's my COO and been a big part of the journey over the last 5 years, for her and I to have that sense of trust and relationship at the core of what we do has been brilliant. Like, I just, we work really well together. There's a real trust. It makes all the difference in the world. So, then you can we brought people into our leadership team, and they're literally, they're like, are you serious? Like, you want us to be more of ourselves. Like, it doesn't, it's not, and I think because it's all I've really ever known, like, obviously I didn't get it right all the time, but it's been my objective.
My dogs are barking. Give me a sec. Hang on. Let me find out what they're barking at. Hang on. I'll pause. Never work with children and animals, Colin. I've locked them in the cellar. I haven't really locked them in the cellar. They're in their bedroom. Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
I think I was saying, when people have joined, it takes them a while to realize, like, we literally want you to be yourself, the best version of yourself. And that maybe sounds cheesy, but it is true that if you're more yourself when you come into work, then we'll figure out the gaps, and we can hire other people to do the stuff that you don't like. And you come in and you love what you do, then that's going to be contagious. So, and it kind of blows my mind that there's so many cultures where that's not the case. And I haven't worked in those places, but it seems to be everywhere. So we almost have to like reverse the process and it takes about 6 months, and then people start getting it. And sometimes only when they leave, they're like, oh, like, now I see what was different. So yeah, I mean, we're not perfect or anything, but I do think that there is something there that is really good about what we're trying to do.
Well, as I say, we've got somebody starting on Monday, and the ad I put out on LinkedIn, it was just a post, was, look, you've got to be a mind reader. You can't be too PC. We don't take ourselves too seriously. You've got to have a sense of humor. I swear you have to put up with that. I don't swear at you, but I do swear. And you've got to be really efficient and organized. And I have to not have to tell you what to do all the time. And if you're up for that, come and join us. But if you're not, just please don't bother, because you're not going to like it. And I think if people were more honest about what they're getting into, I don't know how to be anybody else apart from me. And I don't know about you, Colin, but I've worked for myself since 1999. So I would find it very difficult to be pretending to be somebody else. And here's a question for you. Have you ever had a proper job? No.
Not really. No. 'Cause I started out of uni, so I did like I was an accounts clerk. I put numbers into a spreadsheet for a company for 3 months, and I
Right.
worked in a shoe shop and an ice cream shop and a petrol station. But you know, no, I've never had a proper job. And even in those other jobs, like I remember feeling terrible that I wasn't able to do the job well and just wanting to be somewhere else. So yeah, I haven't had a proper job in that regard, but
Yeah.
so we're learning as we go here.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
our
And do you
kind of
have
advantage, I
investors?
suppose.
And how have you navigated that
Hmm.
being the real you with investors?
Yeah, well, I think it's difficult because I think, the relationship with a startup, and again, this is another hot topic for me, because it's easy to go out and think, right, we just need to raise money, which is what we thought, and then it'll all be fine. But actually, your investors then become really part of your company in a big way. And so I think one of the things we were really lucky is it wasn't easy for us to raise money at the beginning. We were very early to market. People weren't clear there was a market here at all. And thankfully, that meant that we didn't bring on too much early investment. We had a couple of people that believed in us and invested early, which was great. But we then got to the point where we were like, hold on, now we're going to be picky about where we take money from. And we took money from a firm called Marchman Ventures. And they actually, when we realized they'd worked in their previous company with the advantage, and they'd brought in Patrick Lencioni,
Right.
we're like, oh, this is amazing. Like, we're really into that too. We're completely aligned in what we're trying to build organizationally. And so that was a really good fit. So I think I kind of wait, and there's a potential. I've spoken to some investors recently, and it's like when there's a values fit, it's really exciting. And sometimes people talk about values and they don't actually live them. But so it takes a while to get to know, is this person, are they genuine? But yeah, if it's a good values fit, and I've said to people, if you expect us just to become $1 billion company in the next 3 years and grow at all costs, then we're not for you. And some investors said, yeah, we're not for you. You're not for us. That's what they want. And that's never been our goal. It's always been healthy growth, healthy company, healthy team.
And healthy you.
So
healthy you as well.
We're very open about that.
No point getting
exactly.
the millions of pounds of money when you've sold the company and be a complete wreck of your former self, divorced, and your children not speaking to you. Yeah, you got to do it in a healthy way. That is also really good advice. It's like a marriage, isn't it? Getting that investment is a whole new relationship, and it has to be right.
Yeah, absolutely. It can really, those are the meetings that can really stress you out, when you feel that essentially you're, and I don't think it needs to be like this, but certainly at the beginning, it does feel like, your investors, your board, are your boss. So you're bringing in a whole different group of people to kind of shape your company, and essentially you think, well, I'll just get the money and then I'll be left alone, and it doesn't work like that. So you really do have to align on the values. And that is probably the hardest thing, is like people said to me, what are your values? And I didn't really know how to articulate them. It was just kind of like, it wasn't easy to articulate my values. And I read another book that really helped me on that. A book called Bury My Heart at Conference Room B. Have you heard of that one?
Right.
By a guy called Stan Slap. Anyway, it's a hard process, because there's a vulnerability to putting your values out there as well. If you're really genuine about it, it's not just authenticity and integrity, and you have to kind of go into what does it mean for it. What does it mean to be like humble? What does it mean to be compassionate? What does it mean to be clear? Like, these are the sort of things we talk about, and there is a vulnerability in putting it out there, because it's very you, and you're asking people to kind of buy into
that's what we do when we build clients. We build them from the inside out. we start with their purpose, vision, and values. And then exactly as you've said, we help them identify the meaning, identify the behaviors associated with it, and then start implementing it in all their systems. So it becomes like the DNA, the letters in the piece of rock throughout the whole business. And you have to make decisions that are aligned with your values. And sometimes those are on paper crazy decisions, because you may be saying goodbye to a big contract or a lot of profit. But you know this as well as anybody who's properly aligned with their values. It never pays to work with anybody who's not aligned with your values. It just ends very badly. Yeah, definitely. All right.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
where are you taking the business? Where's it heading?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, we sort of, our mantra kind of is healthy things grow. And so we're just about, you know, in a way, you know, our team's been healthy, but we've had other challenges, you know, like we haven't been clear on who our customer was in the past, and we're getting a lot clearer on that. So we're really figuring out how to talk as a business, how to stand out. You know, we were too safe. We look like every other kind of company out there, and we're realizing like that's not the way we want to be. That's not the message we want to send to the world. So we're in the middle of a big rebrand, but not. I'm not just talking about logo. It's almost like, how do we, you know, stand out? How do we position ourselves in a way that is, you know, maybe it's not about cash flow. Maybe it's about helping agencies grow, helping agencies become the best they can be. And I think, so we're really learning a lot about marketing, all over from first principles again. We're really learning how to be bold in our product decisions and do stuff that, you know, is uncomfortable. So yeah, it feels very exciting. It feels like a reset. We had a bit of a reset at the end of 2021. We realized we weren't going to hit our targets. We had to let people go. It was very painful. So in a way, I was like, gosh, is this the end? And then I thought, well, hold on. We're here. We've got this great customer base. We've got this revenue. If somebody came along to me 10 years ago and said, start from here and figure it out, I'd be delighted. So it was almost like a new lease of life for me, figuring, like, going back into this first principles and trying again. And the pandemic was obviously a really just kind of crazy time to do that. So yeah, we're kind of in Flow 2.0
that is
at the
very
moment.
exciting. That makes me tingly. Right, wonderful. So this is a great question to ask you at this point, and you may have been asked this by your branding agency, but if your business had a personality or a character, how would you describe it?
Yeah, well, the way we think about it is, we think, we've thought about that. We've gone over that a lot. So our main character, we got these ducks, little rubber ducks that we give out at events. So we're leading with the duck at the moment. The duck is going to be prominent. And, you know, it's this sort of, there's a bit of an irreverence about it. There's a bit of a punk, because there's a bit of a, like, we're not really, we're in the accountancy industry, but we're not really, it's not where we want to be. We want to help businesses directly who don't understand their numbers. And, you know, don't get me started, but, you know, there's a lot of good to be said about accountancy, but a lot of just really, really unhelpful things as well. And it's essentially, you know, exists so the government can get the right amount of tax. Like, that's one of the principal elements of it. And actually for us, we want to, we just want to empower businesses to sleep better at night, to make wise, confident financial decisions and feel in control. So there's a bit of a rebel spirit in this brand, and you know, being willing to say stuff that, you know, we maybe haven't had the courage to say in the past. So that's, it's a pirate duck.
I like
kind of what
that.
we're
I like that. Yeah, because
businesses
businesses exist as a glorified tax collecting agency for the government, and a lot of people don't realize that until they get into business. Like, oh, okay, one of our key functions is to just process this money for the government.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the idea of a pirate duck. One of our values is bold. And from day one, we went, we are absolutely going to say the things that other business consultants and coaches don't say, because it's really boring, it's really paternalistic, and they think they're God's gift, a lot of them. We are going to go in the opposite direction. High risk, yes, but bit like you, I can't be anything else because I'm a mouthy Mancunian.
Yeah.
It just comes.
I love that. And that, you know, I've seen that in, you know, I've come out from different things you've presented and to the world in your podcasts and your posts and everything. So I think that is working. And there is something, again, like for me, like one of the things about what do you know about good brands is there are people behind them. You know, it's very hard to sort of go, well, who's the person behind Samsung, you know, whereas Apple has Steve Jobs, you know, Virgin has Bill Gates. Like the people that the brands that really people know about, like Tesla has Elon Musk. You know, it's like I would have loved to have stayed in the shadows and just, you know, waited until we're super successful and then emerged and gone, let me tell you about all the success secrets of my success. But actually, you know, it is about being willing to be in the process and just, you know, not really care as much what people think and be willing to just like say stuff. And so I've been on a bit of a journey with that, like just posting and not caring as much about what people think, because there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be people that want to, you know, and you have the voice, and then you're dealing with the voice, you know, the inner voice that says like people are going to hate that, or it's like,
you really do. And I actually think it's a mark of something that you're doing right. Because you absolutely do not want to please everybody. Half the world hates Apple and half the world just is in love with Apple, and that's okay. And that's where you want to be, because that's where the most success lies. So if you get the haters, doing a good job. But hopefully there aren't too many of them. Good. So we're going to see more of Colin, which is fabulous. I look forward to that. I will stalk you on LinkedIn. We're done. I could talk to you for hours, Colin. Thank you so much. You're very easy to talk to. And I think
thank you.
If I were to encourage you, I'd say, we want to see more of you. We want to see your pirate duck personality shining through.
Brilliant. Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on, and this is all part of it. So really appreciate it.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture